which people could stay if they fell off their boat or got marooned in the night. So he started a little business for rescuing people. I just want to say one more thing, which is that we are honored to have here Irene's sister, Lisa Garner, and her husband, Elton, and their daughter, Bethany Rose, and their son, Randy, and they will be speaking also. Bonnie Jean Hanchett, who has long lived at Jago Bay and owns the Clear Lake Observer in Lake County for many years, has come to speak in greater detail about their lives and contributions. And then we'll just kind of play tag, and whoever would like to speak is welcome to come up and share their thoughts or memories. I'm going to finish with a poem that I wrote in 1991. I've been in the habit over the last 20 years that I've lived at Jago Bay of taking a walk at all times of the day and night in Miller Lane, which is named after Irene's family. And I hope I don't cry. I have become a changed person living at Jago Bay, and I think many of us have grown and become better people for being there. Miller Lane. This little lane that seemingly leads nowhere but to the ancient lake with sacred mountain looking down. This cul-de-sac so filled with prayers over the years. This leaf-strewn wintry lane I've walked in moonlight and pitch dark, in snow and sultry heat, nearly 3,000 nights and countless days. This country lane contains impromptu songs and yearning hymns, my thanks and my despair. This lane whose oaks and pines and buckeye, walnut trees and redbud, lilac, poison oak, can shadow, shelter, strew, or guide my path. This lane bejeweled with shooting stars in spring and canopied with shooting stars at night, where I have spoken Mohawk prayers blessing land and house and all my relatives, and offered thanks for every lesson learned, and felt the poems come from awful pain and wonderment. At its mouth, warm airs flow off the unspoiled hill, redolent with earth and pine, and bearing the quiet language of old trees. That keeps me sane, that humbles me again. At its end, the waters sometimes murmur, sometimes crash and rage. Arm in arm or hand in hand we walked, some man or boy or girl or child and I, performing this brief ritual to honor Mother Earth, Grandmother Moon, Father Sky, Grandfather Universe. I stretch and bow, fling wide my arms to ask for strength and understanding, peace, forgiveness, hearing how my voice has grown from strangled wavering to clear, strong notes, and feeling how my feet now trust themselves, walking along this little lane where I have learned to be.
Was with Irene when I brought her to a luncheon that they have every year, and I remember how much she enjoyed it. And it made me feel really good that she was able to see the display that Jane Weaver set up for the articles from the old Jago store that Irene so graciously gave to the museum. And if you haven't seen it, it's really worth looking at because some of the things are really, really fine and cheap, and they're so cleverly displayed, and it really made her happy. We're here today to celebrate the life of John and Irene Jago. People I knew for more than 40 years. We happened to move to the Point Lake area after buying the Village Observer in the late 1950s, and they were our friends and neighbors all that time. They were very influential for my children. We had 5 children, and summer's day was a highlight for people to go down to Jago's store. And there, Irene would always be there. And while she was very strict, she always was loving about it. And young Phelan was so polite. And I think she was an excellent role model for those children. They learned a lot from her, how to report themselves. I have written 2 notes about the main thrust of my memorial for her and for John is the absolutely wonderful contribution they made to Lake County, a county that they loved, and to the viability and preservation of Clear Lake. And I'm not sure how many people know the whole story about that and the struggle that ensued, that both John and Irene, they both led the way. And I think if their help, the thought their input and guidance, it wouldn't have been possible to pass the information along to the public that they provided needed to know. But I know that there are others here that know more about the Jago's resort and the subsequent subdivision, so I'm not going to go on that. But I just want to say a few words about control. It just seems that we say a complimentary thing about Irene, we also would apply to John. They were such great people. They were so honest and integrity was shown. And anything that they undertook to do, they would do it so thoroughly and so with such dedication. I know that Father Stu will probably speak of Irene's own career as a fine teacher, and she used to tell me a lot about the reunion. They have a high school reunion every year, and her former pupils would always be so delighted to see her. I can imagine she was a very fine teacher. But I just now want to say a few words about their contribution. Citizens of Lake County don't realize what they owe to this fair. In the late 1950s, when we purchased the Observer, John Jago came in and seeing me about forming the Clear Lake Water District. Now this was a district that was formed of rimlanders, they were called, or lakefront property owners, from Point Lake to clear around the peninsula. The purpose of this was to have an entity that could help preserve the viability of Clear Lake. Because at that time, through John's awareness, that there was a lot of talk about building dams on each tributary to the lake. And he knew, having lived there all his life, that Clear Lake was a marginal lake and it needed all the water it could get. And so I was happy to be able to help inform people of this meeting, and the district was formed. John, on the side, John served for years on the Steel Abatement Board, and he helped a great deal for the ultimate control of the Clear Lake Nap. going to pass or adopt an agreement that would allow the district, which takes irrigation water out of Clear Lake, would allow them to take the water out of Clear Lake first and leave the water in the Valley Reservoir, which the district had built, as a reserve. When I heard about that, I just couldn't believe it, to think that that was what was going to happen. And so John and Irene immediately took up the work, and it was a struggle. And they never deviated. They stuck with it the whole time. And it was a really difficult situation to overcome because the powers that be wanted the agreement in order to be able to build Scott Creek Dam. There was a lot of controversy, and it was difficult to get the information out in a way that could alert people as to just what was going to happen. But John Jago, through the offices of the Clear Lake Water District, had a little bit of financing, although they used a lot of their own money. And all of this time, and Irene would very meticulously write out all of the pertinent information, because a lot of it was highly technical. And then give us the story so that we could carry it. The ultimate, what finally came about, thank goodness, was this Solano agreement or decree, court decree, issued in Solano County after the Board of Supervisors had to abandon the agreement and come in as friends of the court with the Clear Lake Water District suit against the Yolo District, which was very difficult for them to do, but they did. The Solano decree now governs the way Clear Lake is operated, and it maintains a certain lake level. Had the Lake Yolo agreement prevailed, Yolo would have been able to take Clear Lake to 0 or below the Ramsey gauge 40% of the time. And you know that Clear Lake is marginal, and it would not have recovered. And so this is their legacy, their great contribution to Lake County and to maintaining the viability of Clear Lake. And I'm so proud of them both. And I think it's a story that needs to be told in depth. This isn't the occasion to do it. But I did want you to know how deeply I felt about what their legacy has been. They were wonderful people, and it was a privilege for me to know them and for my family to know them and to work with them in the way that we were allowed to do. Thank you. Just a moment. Carla Jo Grimes from the Canopy Study Club is going to say a few words about Irene's contribution.
Although I'm going to speak to you about Irene's membership in the Canopy Study Club, I want to mention one other organization first that she was very active in. I don't know whether anyone else was going to speak about her participation in the Republican Women's Group of Lake County. So I would just briefly mention that. For years, Irene wrote and saw to the publication and mailing of the newsletter of the Republican Women, Federation of Republican Women's Club, which was very informative. In fact, the Republican clubs all over the state of California used to request that they be on the mailing list. Irene spoke to all the legislation that was going on at the state level as well as the national level in her newsletter every month. then at the monthly meetings, she was the legislative chairperson, and she informed the membership every month of all of the legislation that was going on, both locally and at the state level and nationally, and encouraged us to write to our congressmen and our legislators, and gave us many, many handouts every month that we could take home and share with our families. Much of this was done at her own expense, and John, of course, was the one that drove her everywhere and encouraged her to do this. And I think that she was a very valuable contributor to the Republican women of Lake County. She never told us how to vote or what to do or anything that way. She presented both sides very impartially, and it was then up to you to make your own decision. But I'm really here to speak about her membership in the Kanaka Study Club, which I think was probably as close to her heart as any organization could be. The Kanaka Study Club was formed about 1965 by a group of women in Buckingham, and over the years has had members from the west side of the lake. We've been in existence now for over 30 years, and Irene was a member for about 27. She was always our program chairman. Now, the Kanaka Study Club is exactly what its name implies. We are a study group, and each school year, the membership, each one of us, picks a topic of interest to ourselves that we wish to know more about and to study, and then in a 2-hour dissertation, which is quite a long time, we share the knowledge we have learned with the rest of our group. So we're kind of a serious group in some ways, but we also have our social side of us. We enjoy each other's company very much. We have our Christmas party and our spring party, which Irene thoroughly enjoyed. These are all-day affairs with a luncheon and so program which Irene always prepared, and she did a marvelous job as our program chairman. Some years we chose a topic at large. I think in terms of the year that we did the Soviet Union, Russia. Immediately before the breakup of the Soviet Union, we as a group decided to study Russia. And you can imagine 16 people finding a topic within Russia that they really wanted to know more about. Irene did, of course, the history. I mean, that's right up her alley. She loved history, told us all about the Russian leaders through the years. Particularly, she honed in on Stalin. He had such an effect on the country. But we started off the year with a history. We had a geography of Russia. After all, Russia encompasses 11 time zones. It's a huge country all the way from Europe to the Sea of Japan, from the Arctic Ocean to Mongolia and China. We had to have an idea of what we were studying, of the mountains and the resources, the rivers and so forth. So somebody took that topic. One of our members told us about the Fabergé eggs. Another one about Nicholas and Alexander. Catherine the Great. Russian music. Tchaikovsky, etc. The Russians, the Moscow Circus. We just had a wonderful year studying Russia. Now, sometimes we pick our own topics that we particularly want to learn more about. And Irene always was so happy to help us in any way she could. She really enjoyed studying herself, and she encouraged all of us to do the best that we could and to share it with our fellow club members. And I think this was a wonderful contribution that she gave to all of us. Thank you.
Irene and John's contribution to Lake County. Well, I guess my sister and I can say we have a lot of gratitude to Irene and John because they introduced my parents to each other, and I guess we and our families have gratitude in that regard. Our family has come out of that introduction. And some of you may not know that Irene was, or my father was one of Irene's pupils when she taught at Lower Lake High School. And together with, I guess, my father's twin brother who preceded him. With regard to Bethany and I got to be guests when we were kids at Irene and John's at Jago Resort, and I probably don't need to. I'm sure there's a lot of you that remember more of the about Jago's Resort than we may have, although, you know, what comes to mind, you don't spit watermelon seeds on the beach. You don't run on the pathways, and you can always get a Coke. There was pretty good Coke, too. It was very cold out of that refrigerator. And an ice cream sandwich. Irene and John were very dedicated to the resort. My mother's and the Rivas families, they were very traditional getting together at Christmas time. And there were times when Irene and John would not be able to even make it Christmas. And it meant a lot for Irene to get there at Christmas time. They would not be able to make it because of some of the weather that kept them there in Lake County. And of course, sometimes it was also they didn't want to have to drive down through the Sacramento Valley in the fog. That scared them both to death driving along. And that's, I guess, it's saying that some of the things with regard to Jago's Resort, the lady that spoke to her on the Republican convention, she indicated that Irene would always give you the options without being biased and then let you decide how to vote. I could always count on her calling me before every election day and informing me how to vote. So I don't understand that unbiased portion there, but she was also pretty good. And then, of course, I went on to law school in my education, and both, I could briefly let you know about the Miller family tree. They had one brother in the family, Lester. Lester was the oldest. He's pretty son. Leela was the oldest. And she is predeceased Irene. And then there was Lester and Gladys and Isla. And that Leela. I said Leela. Listen up. and of the four oldest, Isla is still living, and she lives down in Ojai. And then of the four youngest one, Irene was the oldest of the four youngest ones. She finally had to move on. She kept her age at 39 for a number of years until her pupil, who was my dad, passed her up and said she had to get moving on up to her age. She was very reluctant to tell the age, but now that she'd flip out and have to announce the date of her birth, which gave her age away. But Isla's still living with the older four children, and then there's Rowena, who lives over in Paradise, and Reva, who's up from El Cerrito, and then my mom, who lives here in Clear Lake. But I guess I'm sharing with you some of the family tree, I'll let you know a little bit about it. But Isla, my Aunt Isla and Irene both were went to Fresno State and got their degree at Fresno State, and Rita did too, Fresno State. And then Isla and Irene both went on and got their degree at Stanford as well. And they were both very encouraging to my continuing my education. And of course, she always liked to get legal advice from me after I got my law degree. She liked to give the advice, but she didn't necessarily take it or believe in it. And that was pretty fair. I used to tell her that she was getting just what she paid for. I guess some of our memories of John was, or I guess to point out one thing, it's always, when you go through life, you gain a lot of knowledge as you go along, and John and Irene were very educated people. They really would get into things. John would want to learn about everything he could. There wouldn't be any task that he'd undertake that he would study about it. Same with Irene. And so when you see people like Irene and John pass away, it's sad to see that amount of knowledge just vanishes that they were able to gain in their lifetime. And years when he talked about had a real gift for wanting to do engineering and doing engineering. And when we talked about it, he'd had a lot of projects he thought out and designed in his mind and carried a lot in his mind. Very interesting to talk about if you get him on anything historical about Lake County. He was had a vast amount of knowledge. Sometimes it takes him a little while to get the story out if Irene was here because she wanted it to be precisely accurate to the names and everything. Of course, John would have forgotten a few names. But it's really those memories that we have with them. They shared a lot of holidays in recent years with my sister and I. We've alternated each year of having them to our house, and when they could make it, it was unfortunate she was not able to make it this last Christmas time because I think she didn't want to go out there because it was raining or something to do with the weather. But she was stubborn about it. She didn't want to go. She wasn't going to go. We weren't going to change that. But our family will miss them very much, as you will, and we're happy to see all these people show up and honor her and honor John. So, thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I will add one thing about watermelon seeds. John decided one time on the beach that he would have a bunch of little ducks down there for the kids to play with. Well, that ran all right until the ducks got a little bigger and they were feeding them on the beach, and he called me and wanted to know if I wanted a bunch of ducks to take to the ranch. He was tired of cleaning up the beach.
For the record, would you say what your name is?
I'm Dennis Bonnie, and I'm here with some members of my family, Peter, Farrah, Lillian, Alison and Peter's wife, and Isabel and Vivian's daughter. We are part of that other family, the Jago family. I was impressed by how large the village fan is, but I can tell you we're much bigger. We first encountered the Jagos when my daughter was sitting there and the dark dress was not yet quite born, and we got for a place to spend our summer vacation beside the village, which was just as far as we could go to the Bay Area. So we came up here one Sunday and started around the southeast end of the lake, went all the way around the lake. First resort that we came to, obviously, was Jago. We visited just about every significant resort all around the lake, and then we decided that the one that we visited first was clearly the one for us. And we went back to Jago, and Irene said, I knew you'd be back. And we've been there ever since, that 33 years, some 32 or 33 years ago. John and Irene were close friends, mentors, almost grandparents to our children. I had the kind of the dubious privilege, the dubious fortune of building the house which is the one that is closest to the store under the eagle eye of one of the master engineers and carpenters of the county, if not the state. And I'm a rough carpenter, and I do things fast. And he is exactly the opposite, meticulous, slow, thoughtful, and dedicated to perfection. And he knew that half the things I was doing were wrong, wrong-headed, wrong design, mistaken. And I think it was an absolute astonishment to him that our house has not fallen down the hill yet. It's still there. And it does owe a lot to the helpful guidance that sometimes I took. They became respected, honored, honorary members of our families. I think the same applies to just about every family that has participated in the experience of Jago Bay, both when it was a resort and also since it became privately owned lots. John
of California at Berkeley. And we're doing an oral history of the Knoxville mining district. And I've been interviewing people in the community, particularly about mining. But for several years now, the name Jago, of course, kept cropping up, and I knew that the Jagos were leaders of this community, and I was very hopeful that I could interview Irene. It was difficult. I don't feel that I know her as well as most of you do. She was very skittish about being interviewed. She was very reluctant. And, you know, she was a perfectionist and wanted to have everything completely accurate, and she was quite dubious about having me interview her. And when I did finally interview her, almost 2 years ago now, she didn't want to talk very much about herself. She was much more interested in talking about John. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this was to be a service that included John, because I would have brought a couple of wonderful passages from the interview that I did with her about John, but I'll tell you that she emphasized the fact that he was apparently a really committed prospector. He loved to go prospecting, and often would leave on weekends and go up in the hills to prospect. And he liked developing mines, but she said he never really liked mining or working in a mine. He didn't do much with it, but he was thrilled with prospecting and hunting for this stuff, but didn't enjoy mining itself. And he must have been a wonderful man. But I brought just one little paragraph from Irene's interview, which I thought would bring back memories for many of you, because she was obviously so proud of her teaching, and it meant so very much to her. And I think this evokes an era which many of us, well, some of us never knew, and some of us may have forgotten. I don't think anybody has cleaned white shoes in years, have they? Anyway, I asked Irene about the effect of the Depression here in the Clear Lake community, and she said yes, the Depression did, of course, affect us. It did, really. Many of the children in school were from very, very poor families. Some of them couldn't have rubbed 2 nickels together in their pockets, I'm sure. But the mining of that Sulphur Bank mine was a big help economically in the community. Nevertheless, they were neat-looking, clean-looking kids. They had the whitest shoes in California, I'm sure, during the Bobby Sox era, you know. And they were bright and well-behaved and well-disciplined. This was all before the war. I found teaching there very satisfactory. That's one of the reasons I stayed on as long as I did, because my teaching there was so pleasant and so entirely satisfactory. So I'm sure she must have been a wonderful teacher to have felt that way, and I feel privileged to have known her, even though it was a brief acquaintanceship. Thank you.
Someone else?
Wanted to share the thought that was running through my mind as I was sitting there. One of the things that comes to mind, and I think, what am I going to miss? Because Irene and John have both been a huge, huge part of my life. Our place at Jago's has really been one of the big constants over the years. I've been coming to Jago's since really back to before I can remember. We're nonetheless one of the newer families. We're only in our 3rd generation now. But I remember going to the store, and it was a daily ritual when we were kids. And we'd be up there for the weekend, for our summer holidays, going up every day, about 11 o'clock or so. And we were allowed one treat from the store a day to get an ice cream bar or whatever. We'd always, it was something we anticipated eagerly. We looked forward to having us there, and by way of a tablecloth, and we'd sit there until we were finished and then tidy again, and we could head on out. That was, and one of her favorite stories to tell about me is my favorite ice cream when I was that age. It was like one of the Vespa Sundays, or Vespa pie, only it had fudge centers called sidewalk Sundays. And I'd always go up and ask for a Sunday sidewalk. Irene always got a kick out of that. And more recently, I've had the great privilege of spending many hours in the store, in Irene's kitchen, talking with her about anything from British history to Lake County politics. And Irene and John have just given so much to me and my family, and they've left a gaping hole. And I want to share that and honor them and their memory. They were both people of great integrity and great passion when they believed in something. They pursued it and saw it through. I will miss them later.
Any of her students here today that would like to say something?
Will you raise our hand?
Our first students here.
Ask the students to raise their hands. Jane, would you ask the students to raise their hands or stand?
Yes,
up
we
so
can,
know?
the students. Okay, now wait, wait a minute. Wait till I work this thing. I gotta figure out how to do it here. Oh, well.
I have to say something because she was our teacher, our English, Spanish, and art teacher for every student in this room and farther. I don't know how many years. She, as you heard, she was a wonderful teacher. She was only about 10 years older than the senior class when she came, and it was her first school. But she did a wonderful job with some of the boys that thought they were bigger than her. And I love to see what happened to her after she quit teaching with all the people. Wonderful love.
I'd like to speak of this.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you see with us. However, Randy first stumbled for me. I was going to say there was one prize that I received what was her teaching, and that is that she felt that I was good enough and my husband was good enough for each other and introduced it. And we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary in February.
Wow.
They enjoyed our youngsters too, I can see that. They've been theirs as well. I wanted to tell you that I have gotten a couple of albums. I tried to do it as fast as I could, and still find pictures of Irene. She did have a family. She was one of 8 children, and there was a life before she got to Lake County. And I have brought pictures of her from, I think, age 4 was the smallest I could get. And I'd like you to see them. And then there are pictures of her as she grew up. In the article that appeared in the paper, it did not mention her time that she spent at Lake County. And I was responsible for that because the type of kids from one graduation for that. But she was the honor teacher at the State College as well. And, but I think that you will enjoy the pictures and see how she progressed in life. And I'd like to, I'll put them wherever you'd like to have them so that people can see them.
Anybody else?
Vivian Kennedy. Jack Klein's daughter, this is Stella Benjamin. Also mine. This is Isabel, my daughter. They were very different. So, we're just, we just like to read a couple of poems that Irene gave to us. It was particularly, that she's particularly right. I think tonight, today.
You speak into the mic.
What's that?
Speak into the microphone.
This is in her handwriting here. Some things must die that some may live. 'Tis so the world is made. For each least bit of loveliness, 1,000 deaths have paid. The rose is born of withered leaves that once were blossoms gay, and all today's warm laughter springs from tears of yesterday. I want to read her words of why she sent this to me. My longtime favorite is Peterson's Slow Me Down Forward, and I'm happy to see it here. I keep a copy handy and believe you'll enjoy it too, and I thought maybe you would also. Slow me down, Lord, slow me down, Lord. Ease the pounding of my heart by the quieting of my mind. Steady my harried pace with a vision of the eternal reach of time. Give me, amidst the confusions of my day, the calmness of the everlasting hills. Break the tensions of my nerves with the soothing music of the sighing streams that live in my memory. Help me know the magical restoring power of sleep. Teach me the art of taking minute vacations, of slowing down to look at a flower, to chat with an old friend, or to make a new one, to pat a stray dog, to watch a spider build a web, to smile at a child, or read a book a few lines, or to read a few lines from a good book. Remind me each day that the race is not always to the swift, that there is more to life than increasing its speed. Let me look upward into the branches of the towering oak and know that it grew slowly and well. Slow me down, Lord, and inspire me to send my roots deep into the soil of life's enduring values, that I may grow toward the stars of my greater destiny. One more, and this is a song that some of you probably know. I didn't know this song, so I can't sing it for you. I can just read it, but some of you may be able to sort of hum in your own mind or something, I don't know. And we felt that this song represented the great love between John and Irene. It's called The Very Thought of You. The very thought of you, I can hear her singing this to me in her head, I just can't sing. The very thought of you, and I forget to do the little ordinary things that anyone ought to do. I'm living in a daydream. I'm happy as a king. And foolish though it may seem, to me you're everything. The mere idea of you, my longing here for you. You'll never know how slow the moments go till I'm near to you. I see your face in every flower, your eyes in stars above. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love.
My name is Lucille Leal, and I'm one of the more recent members of the
I've belonged to them for about 6 years. Irene was always very, very special to me. She was always made me feel so welcome and so special. I was surprised when I read her obituary and found that she was 85 years old, because her intelligence and her enthusiasm about everything, I would think that she was maybe in her 50s. Anything you wanted to talk about, Irene had read the most recent information on it, and she could keep you right up to date. She never, there was nothing that we talked about that she wasn't an expert on. And really, I'm serious. I really could not believe that she was 85, because a lot of people 85 are content to kind of stay home and watch television or something like that. But Irene must have been a very voracious reader, because she never stopped learning. And she gave a talk to our club on the Celts, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks before she died. It was amazing. I know she was in pain. She said she didn't feel well that day, but she still fulfilled her promise to do a 2-hour dissertation on the Celts. And I learned a lot that I didn't know, and I was nearly her age. So I just want to say that she was special. I loved her.